Hello, hello, and welcome to the Yvonne Nobles Show. I am a global women's wealth advocate and transformation activator, and we are always on the hunt for rising stars to share their story. So today you are going to be in for a treat. We are most honored to be joined by Indrani Phillips, leadership mastery coach and founder of the Embodied and Amplified Method. Hi, Andrade. How are you today?
I am so good. It's so wonderful to be here and to talk and to share and to do all the things. Thank you for having me.
It's our honor. We are so excited. And, to get the party started, we always open with a bit of an icebreaker. Could you please tell us something interesting about yourself that most people do not know, a hidden gem?
Love that. So we actually talked about the answer to this question right before we went live. So I'm going to share with you because I feel like it may have not been the answer that I would have given, but I feel like this experience that I'm going to share is going to be so powerful for so many of us. So
Nice.
my name is Indrani. I'm Indian from India, and I'm first generation born in the US. And I did not use my name for the first 30 years of life. I called myself Annie because I was born in Pennsylvania in the suburbs where it was 98% Caucasian, 1% Black, and 0.01% Indian.
Wow.
So I just remember that I love my name. My name was great. I didn't have an issue with it until I went to kindergarten and the teacher could not pronounce my name. And she kept on tripping over it, trying to say it. All the kids were laughing at me. And that was the first time I knew that I was different.
Mm,
And from that moment, like I'm brown, but the only time that I'm flushed is when I'm embarrassed or when I work out really hard.
I hear you.
My cheeks were red and I just desperately wanted to fit in. So I told her, I said, just call me Annie. And I was
Mm,
Annie for the first 30 years of my life, trying to fit in to a world where I didn't feel like I belonged.
amazing. Amazing. So what happened at the point that you decided take on your name and show it to the rest of the world? What was the trigger?
A divorce.
Hmm.
That'll do it.
Yes, it will.
Um, I I was a kind of girl growing up where I wanted to check things off the box. I wanted to do things so then I could tell people that I've achieved it and they would see me in a certain way. And so I graduated college early. I bought my first condo. I got married at 26, had my first child at 28. We bought our big house, at 28. And as I was kind of looking at my list of like, the list that we have to check things off the box,
Yes.
the last thing on the list was to have baby number two. And that was it. The list was done. And in that moment, I had those, how we have some of those resounding moments that will change the rest of our lives.
Absolutely.
I had that moment to say, what the hell am I doing?
Mm,
I've done all of these things. I was a good girl for so long, and I don't feel the way that I thought I would feel.
mm,
And I just assumed that, if I did all of the things, checked everything off the list, then I would be happy. Then I would feel successful. Then I would feel satisfied and fulfilled. But I didn't feel that way at all. And that was when we had, when I was pregnant with my first daughter, I was already contemplating divorce.
mm.
And once I found I was pregnant, it was very bittersweet because I felt like I can't leave my marriage now, especially in my community. No one got divorced. It was just something that you don't do.
Right.
So when all of that happened, and I realized that, I wanted to be a leader for my daughter. I wanted my daughter to see me fulfilled and happy and in a powerful relationship, a powerful marriage where she could see love and understanding and not like two ships passing through the night, and a roommate situation and always bickering and fighting and just, we just weren't on the same page with anything.
Right.
I realized that I wanted to show her something different. And how could I be that person to tell her to go for her dreams? And to live a fulfilled, satisfied life if I wasn't doing the same. So
Amazing.
that's where,
Amazing. That is so profound, and I'm grateful that you bring up an interesting point. Many times our motivation is going to stem from the next generation.
Hmm.
And it's looking forward, not looking back, that's going to propel us to these new heights. So, why don't we talk a little bit about your entrepreneurial journey? Like, when did you discover that you wanted to be working for yourself, building a legacy? How did that all begin?
Gosh, such a good question. So when I was 21, I graduated and I got a job at Toyota
Hmm.
headquarters, and I was there for 16 years. And even during the time that I was there, I would try like network marketing. I had a personal style business. I started an interior design business, and I thought that that was going to be the business
Hmm.
that would transition me out of corporate America because I had the dream job. I was finally doing what I wanted to do in corporate America. I was working in diversity inclusion, mentoring, creating mentoring programs, like the work that I knew I could do and contribute and add value and do the things that lit me up. And a little bit, I was in that role for maybe a
Okay.
year and a half. And then I'm like, wait, this isn't letting me up anymore. I'm
Mm.
going to work and I'm dreading it. I'm leaving my heart in the car. The politics and the things that were happening, it was a clash against my values.
Mm.
And that's when I was like, you know what? I'm going to it just happened so coincidentally where I love interior design. I've bought and sold a few different homes. And so I've always had a chance to design our house. And I always do it on a budget because why not? And in that space, it's like I know what I want, but like I find ways to afford my style.
Love
so
it.
I had a baby shower for my second child
Okay.
with my second husband. And a friend of a friend came over, and she was like, oh my gosh, your house is amazing.
Mm.
I'm pregnant. Will you design my nursery? I'm like, sure. And I still am so shocked because I didn't have a degree. I didn't go to school for interior design, but I'm like, sure. It's the first thing that popped out of my mouth. I'm like, okay, how am I going to do this? How is this going to even work? And that started my interior design business. Um, I was I was 35. I just had Brianna. Devani, my older one, was 7. I was working full time and I was starting a business. And it was
Wow.
insane. It was insane. Between changing diapers and helping out with homework, I would work on my business from like 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And I started realizing very quickly as my business grew and I started having like contractors and all of these different responsibilities that it's not like the TV shows.
Yeah.
It's so much management of the crew, of the staff, so much responsibility. And then you open up a kitchen and they have all these problems.
Hmm.
And although I love the transformation, it took me out of my house. It took me away from my family on the weekends. And it wasn't that transition that I thought it would be.
Mm.
And ah, I still think about it and I get emotional. I just had this heaviness within me because I'm like, now what?
Mm.
Am I going to be in this job at this company for the next 30 years of my life? And I manifested an amazing life. We live in the gorgeous home in LA. I've got the most incredible husband and the most incredible kids, but I also wanted something for myself where
Nice.
I was making money and contributing, doing the things that I knew that I was meant to do. And it wasn't in my job anymore. It wasn't in corporate America anymore. So I started having anxiety. I couldn't sleep at night.
Mm.
I started getting sick. I had a migraine that lasted more than a week. And and I was bedridden, and I had a physical breakdown.
Mm.
And as a result, I went to the doctor. They did all these different tests from an endoscopy to a sleep. Like I spent the night at a center to sleep to try to figure out what was wrong with me. And I just remember the doctor walking in and she's like, I finally figured it out. And you know, when you're so frustrated with something, you're like, just tell me what's wrong so I can fix it. Because I know that there is something off with me. I'm
Absolutely.
not myself. And I'm like, just give me the bad news. So then I know what it is. And so I just remember her walking in and she's like, Indrani, I have a diagnosis. And there's a part of me that was so scared because you're like, I don't know what the heck it is. And then the other side that just had relief to say, whatever it is, at least I can know and start working towards that solution.
Yes.
And then she diagnosed me with depression. And back then I didn't cry too much. Crying wasn't something that I had permission to do, or I gave myself permission to do, and it never felt comfortable for me. But I was just sobbing. And I felt, my first response was, I felt so guilty
Mm,
because I'm like, who am I to be depressed? I have an amazing husband. I have extraordinary kids. I've got this beautiful home. I've got this incredible job.
right.
Who am I to be depressed? And so I was on disability for a while, and I started going back to therapy, and one thing led to another, and I ended up going to an event that I don't even know how I signed up for because I'm an introvert, and so I
Mm,
won't go to events. I used to not go to events by myself. There's this event on Facebook that somebody was having, and I bought a ticket to it.
and what year was this?
This was like 8 years ago.
Okay.
So it was like right when Facebook was coming out, everything was new. There weren't many coaches online.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I don't want to go, but I can't get a refund. And I'm like, if I can't get a refund, I've got to go. I
There you go.
cannot waste money, right? So I won, and that's where I met my first coach. And I didn't even know coaching was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I found out about it, I just remember that I just had this feeling inside to be like, this is it.
Lovely.
I love transformation. I love being able to guide people through a before and after. And instead of style or interior design, I can help them with their mindset. I can help them with navigating their life, and I can do it from the comfort of my home.
Beautiful.
And that's how the whole journey started. And I started as a life coach, and then I went into transformation more, and then I did mindset, I did human design, I did business. So I've done a lot of different areas as I've embodied more of that teaching and became a student of my work. And it's been incredible. And
Love
it's
it.
been the most, that and raising kids have been the most triggering things to me because you work on a lot of your personal stuff when you're selling and talking and sharing about your programs online.
Yes.
Um, Especially if you've got a culture like mine where we're not supposed to be sharing our truth. We're not supposed to be talking about money. We're not supposed to be vulnerable. And it's not traditional for women like me to be able to have this voice, to have a platform, to talk about the things that I talk about. So it's been a wild journey of a lot of inner work
Mm,
for me to be able to step into my power and continue to do so, because I tell my clients all the time, it's a journey, it's not a destination. We get to deepen into our mastery, into our values, into our congruence, into our mission, into our vision, into our next level self. The
yes.
journey never ends. We just get to deepen into it.
I am so, so glad that you brought up the inner work because when you make it look easy, I always use the analogy of an ice skating couple at the Olympics that wins the gold. All we see is the win, but we don't know how many times he dropped her or they really didn't want to practice, but they had to get out there anyway. And we don't know the tears and the bruises, the bloody cuts, and the sleepless nights, but they made it to the gold. And so, what happens in the coaching arena is exactly what you said. People only see the success and the joy and the happiness, but they don't know that it took layers to get there. And tell us a little bit about the inner work. What did that require for you? How is it that you face it when it can be so difficult?
Absolutely. Well, I feel like no one can prepare you for social media and
Yes.
having a business on social media and having your business be and the way that I share and I market and I, talk about my products, my programs, my offerings is through the art of storytelling with vulnerable leadership.
Yes.
So it was really hard. And I will be completely transparent that in most of the programs that I was in, it was all with white women.
Okay.
And again, it brought up a lot of my triggers. It'd be like, of course, I'm the single one out, and people were like, are you white? Are you black? What are you? Where are you from? And so I kind of felt that way. And
Mm,
when they would get results and I didn't, I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe that's not available for someone like me. And I didn't see any other, not really women of color, do any of that or create that level of success and the way that I desired it, especially Middle Eastern women. I didn't see anyone like that at all.
hmm
So as I wasn't getting the success, getting the results, getting the clients, and all these other women were, which they were all white, it was like, oh my gosh, maybe this is another thing that I just don't have availability to. Maybe it's that other glass ceiling that I'm never going to hit because of what I was born into.
mm,
So that was a big one for me. And what I realized was it wasn't about the coaches, it wasn't about their success. It was about the triggers that I had in my past, in my childhood, that I never processed. We
yes.
don't know how to process it. Even, I mean, I was in and out of therapy since I was very young. I've had a very traumatic childhood growing up with my parents and a lot of things happening. And even in the therapy, we would kind of talk about it. I don't even know if I did, honestly, because I didn't know that
Right.
that was a thing. I
Right.
just felt this way, that I don't fit in, I don't belong. My parents were very traditional. My parents were born and raised in India, and they wanted me to be living in the US, but raised how they were raised because they didn't know any better.
Exactly.
So I didn't have the opportunities to go hang out with friends after school, to go to the mall, to go to dances, to have that experience that you have as a teenager born in the US. So there was just so many things underneath the surface that I didn't understand back then that there's no way that I could have processed.
hmm
They all came up for me to process in my coaching journey.
Yeah.
On me not being good enough, not being smart enough, not being accepted, the victim mentality that I didn't even know that I had, the struggle that I had to work so damn hard for everything that I got.
Yes.
So there's all these different pinnacles that I had to really start going within and asking myself the question on like, okay, what is happening? What's going on? Is it just me? Or is there something going on here that I can change? I can rearrange. I can um, decode, is what I call it now, to
hmm
step into something different. And that's where I practice human design. And in my human design, I am here to really investigate.
Okay.
And that naturally was great because as I started learning human design, I'm like, I'm already doing this. This is incredible. It gave me so much insight on who I am without me knowing, because it's just the innate things that we do.
Yes.
So I was researching and I joined so many coaches and coaching programs and modalities and trying to figure it out. And through my whole process, I started creating tools to
Nice.
be able to regulate the nervous system, which in simple terms is when I'm triggered. When there was, and I'm going to talk about race, when there was another white coach in my coaching program saying, I just celebrated 50K month. And then all of my thoughts with that to be like, oh my gosh, I'm happy for you, but I'm not. Like, I'm really triggered, right? It's kind of
Right.
like the frenemy for the frenemy. And we want to say congratulations and we do, but then there's that little voice in our head. And I call her Olga to be like, Indrani, well, why can't you do that? Why
Mm,
is it so easy for her? Why does it have to be that way? What is going on? And a lot of the times when we ask ourselves the question, our mind will come up with answers.
yep.
And we get very curious on what those answers are, because a lot of them was, oh, well, it's not available for you. There's no other Indian woman doing this. There's no woman of color doing this. So why are people going to listen to you? Oh, well, they're going to listen to that white woman because I was putting them on a pedestal and I didn't even realize it.
Mm,
So I was literally creating the conundrum that I was living through because of the insidious vows that I took about what a woman could do, and on top of that what an Indian woman could do and what I was available to achieve, as well as a lot of the belief systems on, okay, yeah, that's a pretty white girl that can get everything, that can have, the money, the guy, the cars, all of these different things, but it's not available for someone like me.
mm,
So it was really starting to unpack those and be able to start processing a lot of these pains from my past that if we don't process, they don't go away. They reincarnate into something else, to somebody else triggering us, or something else happening that is, for me now, I'm at a place where I love being triggered because I know it's an opportunity for me to look at that and see what's there so I can heal it. And I know that's going to catapult me into another layer of depthness and embodiment and
beautiful.
abundance that
Beautiful.
follow.
You are hitting on so many nuggets. And, I just have to interject when it comes to these limiting beliefs.
Mhm.
The thing that you pointed out that most haven't acknowledged yet, they're there, whether you want them to be or not.
Mhm.
And you have to raise them up and confront them before you can ever grow. So, as you said, when Olga starts talking, have the conversation. The worst thing that you can do is duct tape her mouth and turn the other way and pretend it's not there because it's a part of you. And when you embrace it, you face it, and you tell it the truth, well, now you reach new levels. So I love that. And,
Mhm.
I also say that the only limit to anything we're going to do is we ourselves. If we
Absolutely.
can get out of our own way, we are literally unstoppable. And you are living proof of that. You're in the process. You've done so much, but I'm here to tell you, Indrani, you have so much more coming your way because, like you said, you've learned how to decode, you've learned how to help others do it too. And that's where the magic happens. When you start getting this exponential growth and
Mhm.
community, I mean, what do you think?
I mean, I love everything that you're saying. And it's one of those things where it's like, it was hard.
Mm,
And there's so many challenges. And I've had conversations with my husband where I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like I'm putting myself out there, things are happening and it wasn't working. And I was comparing myself to others. It was like so hard.
yeah.
And I started realizing that, okay, it's these beliefs, because like all of our beliefs are limiting. Because like we need to have limiting beliefs so we can understand the world, because there's so many different possibilities.
Yes.
And I was boxing myself into to these spaces where I couldn't breathe anymore. And I'm like, I want more, but I don't know how. I remember, I don't know if you watched the movie Frozen.
Yeah.
There is that moment where Elsa is like, you know what? F it. I'm going like I'm running away from the kingdom. I'm doing my own thing. And there's a point where she's running up the mountain and she's building the stairs while she's running up them.
Yes.
And I feel like that has been my journey the whole time, to say, I continue to go. I don't look for my blocks. I don't look for what's going on. I used to do that. And whenever we're looking, we're going to find what we're looking
Yes.
for. So instead, I'm like, okay, when I want this, when I want this goal, I get so clear on what that is, like deciding. Because so many times we have a feeling of we want something,
Hmm.
but deciding what it is that we want and having that want be ours instead of in that belief world to be like, well, no, people like me, I should have this because of my family or because of other people or because of other coaches or whatever that is. If we don't decide and have a why that's bigger than us, that turns us on and that gives us the momentum and the desire to keep on going, especially when times aren't working, it's just going to take us longer to get there. We can always get there,
Oh, yeah.
but it's going to take a lot of force. But
Yes.
when we do the inner work, which is processing the triggers, all of a sudden, if you are looking at your bank account, you're like, oh my gosh, there's not enough money. Or you're looking at your program and you're like, oh my gosh, who's going to buy this? Who's going to buy my product? Who's going to buy my business? How am I going to get a raise? I'm not good enough. This person's better than me. If we're not looking at all of these things in our external environment that's there for us, and if we're not looking at it and saying, oh my gosh, I love this, but I don't like this. For instance, with my health journey, I'm going to be 45 this year. And I'm like, I'm not feeling the way that I want to be feeling. When I get sick,
Hmm.
I get sick for a long time. My body doesn't feel the same. I don't feel the same way in my clothes. I literally took 3 weeks out of my business last month,
Good for you.
and it was the most incredible, crazy thing that I've ever done business wise. And I got a personal trainer. I am eating differently. I'm tending to my body. I'm intentional about the foods that I'm eating because I know that if I want to continue to defy age, that I get to do the work required
Yes.
to get the thing that I want. I'm not just thinking about, oh my gosh, I want to have this beautiful health in this body and all these things. I'm doing the work required as well as creating the intention of what I want to do. So why do I want to feel that way? So then when I'm in a swimsuit, I feel amazing. So
Mm.
when I have the energy to run around with my kids, I have the vitality in my body that when my kids have kids, I still have a ton of energy. So I have
Yes.
these powerful whys on why I want this, and I'm anchored to that. So those days where I don't want to go to my personal trainer, which is like every day, I'm just like, no, I know why I'm doing this. This is my why, and that can catapult us to that place.
Yes.
And then even in my personal journey, there's times where it's like, oh, I didn't lose that weight that I wanted to, or I didn't hit that money goal, or whatever that thing is, or comparing ourselves to somebody else. We look on social media and there's like these amazing, beautiful bodies everywhere.
True.
And so when we get into our head and we start having conflicting thoughts that are not in alignment with our desires. So in my case right now is, how I want to feel and look and see my body, then I'm able to be aware of it quicker and quicker and quicker. And instead of having that black hole of thoughts to be like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to lose my pooch. I had to have 2 C-sections. This is why I don't look good. Am I ever going to get my body back? Oh my gosh, what's going to happen? What if I don't have vitality? We can go down that never ending loop of
Vicious
the
cycle.
thoughts, or we can become aware of it and then say, oh my gosh, I'm feeling this way. Let me go ahead and look at one of my tools in my toolkit, grab that tool, within minutes, process it, and then get back into my power.
Beautiful.
And from that place of alignment and desire, take action instead of that place of scarcity and doubt, take action. And the momentum and the next steps are drastically different. Um,
Yes.
I was just on a group call for one of my containers, and I used an example that about a ball, right? So if we want a ball to go a certain distance, if we have the ball on top of the hill
Hmm.
and we drop it, it's going to go far and it's going to create that momentum. But if we're at the bottom of the hill pushing the ball up, we can eventually get there, but it's going to take a lot more struggle and force. It's just like our energetic vibration. If we are operating from a place of lack, of scarcity, of doubt, of worry, of should, of have to, yeah, we can get it done, but it's going to require a lot more work. But
Yes.
if we do the work first and become in vibration, Abraham Hicks talks about the vortex. If
Hmm.
we're in the vibration of our desires, if we are in our pleasure, if we are doing that work to release the doubt and the resistance and the fears and step into that energetic vibration of abundance, of gratitude, of desire, and we take action from that place, our results are drastically different and it creates that momentum.
Yes.
And even though I took 3 weeks off in my business, we manifested like $40,000 that didn't even come through. Like a small portion of that came through my business in new sales. but I'm just a match for it. So it just happens, like free dinners, and our car sold for 15,000 more than we thought. And this happened and this happened and
Yeah.
all these
Isn't it
crazy.
amazing?
Yeah. And it's when we're in vibration for it and we
Yes.
allow it and we're not repelling it by
Yep.
our limitations.
Love it. Love it. And, it's so amazing. The magic of what you're saying is the circumstance, the situation is exactly the same. So you take two different women, you put them in the same spot, but one is positive or forward looking, the other gets lost in that vortex and the negative,
Mhm.
and they have very different consequences. So we can't blame our circumstances. We can't blame the situation, but we can take a pen and rewrite what it's going to turn into simply if we tap into the power of mindset. So, I love what you're saying. I definitely, as a fellow coach, have to put it out there to the audience. Get yourself a coach. It's all about collapsing the time because you made the point earlier, you're going to get there regardless. But why take 20 years or 10 years when you can do it in 5 years or one and
Mhm.
free up that space to go and live your best life? So, so,
Amen.
so powerful.
Amen. Amen.
Question for you though, when it comes to your calling, would you say that your calling chooses you or you choose it and why?
Mhm. I feel like it's not one calling or one purpose.
Hmm.
For some, it is. For some, it is. And for others, it's about just doing what lights you up, right? Doing that thing and knowing. I feel like the most powerful thing that I've done is surrender it all.
Mm,
Surrender to say, okay, you know what? I know that I'm doing this. I'm not going to make it. It's kind of like, dating someone. And
hmm.
you're like, okay, I'm going to date them as long as it's fun, things are going well, but I'm not putting so much force to be like, this is it. And I feel like a lot of the times, especially with women right now, the ones that are wanting to grow and wanting to find their purpose, wanting to find their power, wanting to profit from their purpose, which is
Hmm.
like the best thing ever.
Absolutely.
So many times we're like, okay, it's got to go this way. We've got to niche it down. We've got to be so specific. It's got to come through this one way. Where for me, it's more about no, like what is turning me on? What am I here to do?
Hmm.
And I do love looking at human design because there's a lot of things there that will start pointing you into the direction of what you're here to do. And I was doing this, I just didn't realize it, but in my human design it's about being really practical and seeing the values and the rules that are out in the world and seeing what rules are old and outdated and antiquated, like like destroying them, coming up
Mm,
with my own rules, and then guiding others to do the same thing in a very easy, simple, and practical way.
love it.
And when I realized that, I'm like, holy, fill in the blank. Um, I get to do that in a lot of different ways, right? So it's one of those things where I get to show up in different ways in different areas of my life, and I feel like our calling will find us when we are in alignment with our values,
Mm,
when we are in a place of openness and possibilities, and we are, instead of taking action from the head, I say I never make a decision from my head. When we make a decision from our head, we're dead. That's what I
mm,
say. It's about making the decision from my deep body wisdom and intuition. And then once I've made the decision, having the head create the action plan, the strategy. Hi, Brianna. The action plan, the strategy, all of those things. There's a place for the mind, but it's not to make decisions. And that's not what we're taught at all. We're taught the opposite.
yep, yep.
So,
That's
my long-winded
profound.
answer. I
No,
hope
that
that
was
makes sense.
very, very profound. It's this matter of, I always say, when we're going through transition, it's like the butterfly. You're this chubby little caterpillar, and something compels you to go into that cocoon, and you don't even know how amazing you're going to be after the fact, but you have to change. So you step in, you come out, you're blown away. But I think what happens, much like you said with the calling, For some, it's linear, but for others, there's layers. So a very established, wonderful, fulfilled woman is going to realize that she goes through that butterfly process repeatedly. And there's nothing wrong with that, because
Mhm.
sometimes what you're doing today is not exactly where you're going to feel aligned in 5 years. And
Mhm.
that's okay. What's more important is stepping up. And you mentioned earlier a couple of times, pausing to have those moments of introspection and checking in with you and thinking something doesn't feel right. And instead of ignoring that and just going about your routine anyway, figuring out how do you make it right? Because that's when you're really living. I love that.
Absolutely. I'm not the biggest Tony Robbins fan. I
Mm,
do admire him, but he's not like my cup of tea. I don't like get activated by him.
I see.
Uh, and one of the things that he said that was very activating for me was he said, when's the best time to kill a monster? When it's fucking tiny.
Yeah,
And that is all of our thoughts. That is all of the things going on in our mind. So if we
true.
are, it comes with our thoughts, our emotions, and we're not taught to move through it. We're taught to repress it, avoid it, push it down, but it never goes away. And
Right.
so I feel like when people go postal, when people road rage happens, when domestic violence, when like these huge acts happen from people where the neighbors are like, I have no idea this person was capable of this.
Mm,
I feel like it's that implosion where it's
yes.
a build up, 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 and then we cannot not react.
Hmm.
And we aren't taught this. We aren't taught this in school. We aren't taught this by our parents because there was no education around it. A lot of our elders didn't know how to do this, but our emotions, our energy and motion, they're meant to be felt. They're meant to be
Right.
seen. They're meant to be heard. We don't need, I was talking to a woman and she said her coach said, okay, well, go take 3 hours and process this emotion. She's like, I didn't know what she was talking about. And it was a long time. I'm like, 3 hours? No, like why does it have to be that complicated? We can literally have simple processes where we can start shifting
Hmm.
the emotions, shifting the triggers, finding wisdom in the trauma that we've experienced, and being able to alchemize it into power. So the actions that we're taking isn't from the wounded warrior. That's like the survivor to say, you know what, I'm not going to be a victim, I'm a survivor. And taking action from that space is all coming from the head because they're hurt,
Yes.
because there's protection walls up, because it's like, you know what, I need to struggle, I need to make this happen because I will not be a victim.
Mm,
I was that survivor for so long in my life, and now I'm like, you know what, I'm at this next place where I leverage my wounds. I start looking within. I take totally full radical ownership. And I feel like that is something that gets to be talked about more.
yes.
Taking radical ownership for everything, the foreclosure, the depression, the divorce that happened to me, like all of these situations, as we take radical ownership for it, we are able to lead ourselves through it.
Yes.
But when we're the victim to that person, that parent that did this, or that teacher, or that relationship, or that friend, or whatever, when we assign ourselves to be the victim, we're not in power. They have all the power.
Yeah, we've given it away.
And how can we heal that? We're just going to be the victim. And when we're in that victim energy, we're going to continue to manifest a, a the same situation, same person, different face in the
Yes.
different areas of their life. When I still had, issues with my dad, I manifested bosses that were the same way,
Yep.
relationships that were the same way.
Yep.
And when I realized that that was enough, and hold on, I am pointing all these fingers at all of these people and how they've wronged me, and how, I am a wronged woman.
Hmm.
I was like, wait a second, what do they all have in common? Me.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's where we get to start seeing it and start taking assignment. And instead of taking that responsibility without the guilt, without blaming ourselves, without beating ourselves up, giving ourselves grace through the process, and then having tools, resources to start working through them. So then we are not acting from our wounds and our limitations. We're acting from our power and possibilities.
Fabulous distinction. You know, there's that old saying that anytime you point a finger, four are pointing back.
Mhm.
But when you can get to the level of glorious forgiveness, because when you're letting it go for whoever wronged you, you're actually forgiving yourself. You're giving yourself the space to grow into the amazing being that you need to be. But until you do it, we keep ourselves stuck and buried away. And I love to, speaking on that subject of guilt, you made a very interesting point earlier when you said you got the diagnosis and you immediately felt guilty because you thought, how dare I be depressed
Mhm.
when I have everything? But the thing is, processing emotion is the key to that power. I had a similar experience. This was right before we came back from New York to Florida to take care of my dad as he was passing away. And I went in for a routine visit. A tumor was found in my left breast. And they said, and it was a woman center, by the way. So I'm so used to having my husband by my side. And hours they wanted to do another procedure and another check, and my cell phone wasn't working, so I couldn't tell him what was going on. And I felt so lost and afraid because when you look over at the screen, this little tiny tumor looks giant and you're thinking everything's going to end.
Mhm.
But the worst part of the ordeal was that I had to wait 3 days for the biopsy results. And when the nurse calls on day 2 just to check and see how I'm feeling as a courtesy, I'm thinking I got early results. And when she says, I'm just checking to see if you're okay, Indrani, I lost it. Like, how dare you call me without knowing what's going on? I needed to lash out. But the worst part was when they called me on the 3rd day to say, it's benign, there's no cancer, you're okay. I immediately was washed with guilt because I said, all these women that lose their lives and they get it. Why not me?
Mm.
And so it's very interesting how, as women, we continually put pressure on ourselves, no matter whether it's good news or bad news.
Mhm.
And the key is to find community where you see someone that's barreled through and that's learned how to take that. And as you said, turn it into power. What appears to be a weakness or a loss can be the very thing that makes you step up. And when you do embrace that and you can share that with other women, man, there's just no feeling like it. So we are so, so happy for your journey and where you're headed. In fact, is there anything amazing that you're working on that we need to be on the watch for?
My goodness, helicopter.
Okay.
I'm like, yes. I mean, I feel like I want to close on that conversation about the guilt
Yes, add to
and
it.
and and say that it's a beautiful thing for us to be so compassionate for others,
Yes,
and it's time we give that to ourselves.
couldn't agree more.
It's time where it's like if a friend called us, a loved one, our best friend, our closest person, and said something to us, the thing that we're struggling with, that we're beating ourselves up about, what advice will we give them? What type of compassion will we give them? And we get to give ourselves that same type of compassion. We get to
Absolutely.
give ourselves that same type of love and that same type of understanding, because that is so powerful, because we are our own biggest advocate. And if we are not giving ourselves and seeing ourselves in that space and that light of what we want other people to see us as, there's incongruency and we're not going to have the experience that we desire. So it
Yes.
all starts from, I know self-love is like, I don't really like that word. I feel like it's kind of overused, but giving ourselves grace through that process and also celebrating how far we've come, because so many times, I get on amazing calls with extraordinary women like you, and I'm
Oh,
like, oh my gosh, I do have an amazing life. And we forget that. And I am no longer available to forget how far I've come and everything that I'm doing to continue to create this while I'm ready and excited to receive more.
mm,
And so when we can hold that gratitude and the celebration for everything that we have and also hold the energy of desire for more, that is when it gets so magical, because then the lack and the scarcity falls away and
yes.
we're able to just like be like Elsa and just continue to create that staircase, and who knows what will happen. The possibilities are limitless. So I
Yes.
wanted to just close out on that because I feel like that's just so powerful for women to hear, especially women. They don't feel like they fit in. They don't
Yes.
feel like they've got representation of that person or that role model for them in the work that they want to do. They can be that role model.
There you go.
And what you said earlier was so beautiful, where so many times I see for myself and my clients is the thing that I was running away from. I didn't want to stand out. I didn't want to be noticed. I didn't raise my hand in class. Like I wanted to be the wallflower because it was like I stood out like a sore thumb.
Hmm.
And I was trying to blend in my entire life. I wasn't white enough. I wasn't black enough. I wasn't tall enough. I wasn't Indian enough. I wasn't enough.
Mm,
And I wanted to fit in so bad. And now I realize that I was born to stand out.
absolutely.
And that's the message that I get to share is my pain. But if I let that pain take a hold of me, I would still be Annie. I'd still be working in corporate America. I would still be playing along somebody else's rules and not my own.
Mm,
And I'm not
got to pick
available
up the
for that
pen.
anymore.
Got to write it. That's lovely.
Exactly. Exactly. So, oh my gosh. So, with that being said, yeah, I've got my legacy program, which has been on my mind for a long time, because I see in the industry that there's so many coaches that come up with different programs all the time.
Hmm.
To be honest, it makes my head spin a little bit. And while I was on my 3-week hiatus, I was like, okay, well, what do I want to launch next? What is going on? What do I want to do? And I realized that it's like it is the program that I've already created. It's my legacy.
Mm,
I'm here to create a legacy and show women what is possible by giving them a toolkit
love
to
it.
process any experience, any emotion, any trauma, anything that comes up, being able to have a practical and simple way to move through it
Mm,
that has 100% success rate.
love it.
And so many times we're like, what is that next thing? What is that next program? Any coaches that are watching this is probably resonating with that, because you see these coaches launching this and this and this and pulling different things out of their ass. You're like, okay, what is this now? And I'm here to share that you can have your legacy. You can have that program that that works, that is powerful, that is the extension of you, that is the embodiment of your own journey, and be able to teach it to people in a way that is really potent and powerful and magical, that can only be taught by you.
Love it.
And so it was interesting because this method that I've created was for me, because I was going through dark times in my coaching business. I was like, honey, I'm out, going back to corporate America. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm totally burnt out. And I took a pause like I did, last month. And in that transmission, it was like, okay, you know what? We need to start working on these things that I had inside, all of the resentments, all the hurt, all of the past investments that didn't work, all of this guilt that I had.
Yeah.
and all of the frustration that I had. And so as I started pulling out and trying different tools, because I was my own guinea pig, that's how the embodied and amplified method was born. And I just started using it on myself because I'm like, I want to grow through this. And to be honest, therapy's not helping.
Mm,
Coaching isn't helping. Like, I've done a lot of the mindset work and I knew that I had deeper stuff to work on. So creating a method that was simple and practical for me to use. And then once I embodied it, I started sharing it with my one-on-one clients. They're like, holy crap, this is amazing. This is more powerful than therapy.
love it.
They were like, I want to be like, I want to learn this, right? Create a certification program. And then I realized that, you know what, like not all people are going to want to be coaches to do this. So I created a program to help all women go through these things, go through their own experiences, and have them have a toolkit to navigate through that. So my mission is
Wonderful.
to bring that to every single person, every single human on the planet, because once we have that emotional intelligence, once we're able to regulate our nervous system when we feel fear, doubt, worry, instead of putting it on the other person or exploding on someone else,
Hmm.
right? We're able to process through that, and then we get to speak with emotional intelligence, be able to ask for what it is that we want and feel
Yes.
safe to receive what we want. And that is when we're in the intentional creator of our reality.
Love it. Love it. I'm going to make sure that all of your social links are included in the write up so everyone can get in touch with you. Do you have a preferred method that you want to share that's ideal for those who are listening of how to reach out to you?
You know what? You can follow me. The most present on Facebook, Indrani Phillips. And then I have a Facebook group called the Wildly Unapologetic Entrepreneur. And anyone that is interested, I would love to give you access to the fear release tool, which is one of the tools that I use with my clients. I can send you over the link for that too in the write up.
Beautiful.
And that is, I did a specific activation around what if it doesn't work?
Mm,
Right. And so, how many times have we thought, what if this doesn't work? What if it doesn't happen? What if I don't hit my goal? What if I don't get that job? So I did an activation around that so you can literally feel your shift in your energy once you do this with me. It's about 12 minutes and it's super powerful to start really digging up what's underneath the surface that is creating resistance between where you are and what you want.
beautiful. Beautiful. So amazing. You know, we've got just two more questions before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Let's talk for a moment about being on our second marriages. How
Mm.
profound do you think that is in your ability to show up every day, knowing that you have essential support in the form that you didn't necessarily get it the first time?
Gosh, what a good question. Um, well, to be completely honest, my second marriage was kind of manifesting like my first marriage. And once I realized that, I was like, oh my gosh, it's not the person, it's me. Like,
Mm,
what am I doing? Where am I not like, where can I hold myself accountable? And I started realizing that a lot of things that I was doing, the patterns that I was in, was from limitations and from not loving myself enough, from needing him to tell me that I was pretty enough, to tell me that I was worthy, and being triggered by him. And the caliber of man he was triggered me a lot. So I had to do a lot of my own work around that. And the most powerful thing is once I did my work, I was able to receive the man that he is. And it's not that he changed. He didn't do
right.
any of the work, which is a little frustrating because I'm like, okay, you didn't do any of the work. I'm doing all this work. But it's also so empowering because now I'm able to receive him where he would do things for me like, make me coffee or take care of the kids or do something nice. And to be honest, I couldn't even receive it because I was like, if I give him compliments, he's going to think that he's better than me and leave me.
Mm,
I can't. I can't let him know how much I need him. Right. And then I would withhold love. I would withhold attention. I withhold affection. If he didn't tell me that I looked pretty that day, then I'm like, oh my gosh, is he checking other people out? Like I was a mess. Like
Mm,
I definitely was a mess. So I did a lot of work in our marriage. And to be honest, I do work every single day because we've been quarantined for the last 2 years. He works literally right like on the other side of the French doors. I work in the same house, and it has been absolutely incredible because I'm allowing him to support me.
beautiful.
And while that sounds so crazy, because it's like, of course, we want a man to support us, are we receiving it? Are we feeling like we're worthy of it? I didn't feel like I was worthy of it. So even though he was giving it to me, I wasn't able to receive it. I
Mm,
wasn't able to value it. I wasn't able to to move and flow with it. So I feel like because of the work that I've done, I'm able to have the effective communication to acknowledge him, to see him as my king, and to be able to ask for what it is that I want and not need him. Like I think Jerry Maguire movie is the most annoying thing ever. Like when Jerry says to Renee Zellweger, "You complete me."
yeah.
No, we complete ourselves. That's like
Yeah.
that's codependency. It's like when I was able to validate myself, he can confirm me. He no
Hmm.
longer needs to validate me anymore.
Yeah.
And now we work so well. Like I forgot that we had our call today, and I was supposed to go pick up my daughter at 4. And I'm like, honey, I know you just picked up the older one, but can you pick up the younger one too? And he's like, I got you. Right.
Aw.
I don't have I don't feel like, oh my gosh, you know what? I forgot about this. Like getting into what's wrong with me? Why didn't I do this? I feel so bad. Now I have to make it up to him. I'm like, no, he's got me. I've got him. And I love this song. I'm a force when I'm alone, but I'm a movement when we're together.
Yes.
We're a movement together, and together we can do anything and everything. And I didn't know that this is possible in a marriage. I
Yes.
never saw it modeled for me. But when we're in that place of possibility and radical self responsibility, and we're doing our own work, we can just be opened up for possibilities that blow our mind.
Couldn't agree more. It's funny because I had a conversation with a friend. This is a couple months ago because she's newly married, and she always admired the love that my hubby and I have. And she said, I didn't know that you made it look so easy. Well,
Best compliment ever.
Here's the thing. It takes work, as you said, every day. But when you show up, love shows out
Mhm.
because it's just a reminder. First of all, as women, we deserve love. Any listeners out there that are thinking, I did something wrong, I'm not worthy, or as you were saying earlier, the I'm not enough. Honey, you got it. But when you get it and it shows up, make sure that you let it be. Because the worst thing we can do is push that away. When you have a good man, make sure that he knows, as Indrani said, he is your king. And that takes queenly power and queenly conduct. So the appreciation will just go through the roof, and you'll see him showing up in ways that you couldn't imagine. It's going to look easy to the outside. It does take work, but every ounce is worth it. And on a slightly different note, Indrani, I love too how you referenced earlier, it's those moments of breaking away from our routine that elicit amazing creativity. So please, ladies, stop thinking that you have to run on E and be doing all the things and showing up for everyone but you. Take a day, take a week, take a month, whatever it takes to center yourself so you can be rewarded with new growth. It's amazing how it happens. I know it sounds contradictory, but Indrani shared her experience. Try it. You'll thank her later. And, the closing question is one I always ask, but I want to say that what drew us together was me finding your post of a letter that you were writing to your younger self. So it was profound. It was beautiful. Make sure you go check that letter, listeners. But I'm going to ask you, Indrani, if you went back 20 years and you had just 2 minutes to have a conversation with your younger self, what are you saying?
Um, my goodness. I would tell her and speak over her. She can never make a mistake. Even though she's questioning her marriage, even though like her about to marriage, even though it ended up in divorce, like I would just let her know. And I would love to just be like, it's a Wonderful Life, or one of those movies where like I show her the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Be like, you know what? You're gonna go through so many things. You're gonna experience things that you never thought that you could. But there's so many gifts in everything. Your divorce brought you the strength, the courage to look at yourself and create a life beyond your wildest dreams. Your first marriage brought you your child, who is one of your biggest growths and triggers ever, and the space and the desire to heal even more. You're going to leave corporate America. You're going to do things that you never thought that you'd be courageous enough to do, but you've
Mm-hmm.
done it. And when you give yourself grace and you focus in on being selfish first, it is the most selfless thing that you can do. Because when you serve every day from overflow, there's no resentment. There's no looking to try to have someone fill up your cup. There's no validation needed, but the confirmation comes from so many different sources.
Mm. Mm. Love it. And the real intent of that message and that question is that carry it with you as a parting gift so that 20 years from now, you're still doing the things that made you get here. And your life is all what you make it. We are going to be watching and applauding and celebrating with you and wishing you the very absolute best. We want to make sure that all of our listeners remember much of what Indrani and I discussed today revolved around a very basic fact. When it comes to making decisions, you need to feel the fear and do it anyway. Do not let fear stop you. But as we draw to a close on what's been an amazing conversation, is there anything, Indrani, that you feel you want to share as a takeaway for those that are listening?
Mm. You are absolutely worthy of everything that you desire, every single thing. And you came from source, you came from creator, you came from God, you came from the universe, you came from whatever that higher belief you have, which means that you have that within you. You come from that. They say that we come from stardust. And so we get to change our lives. We get to take every moment and see it as a new one to recreate. We get to look back to see how far we've come. And we get to dance with our fears, extract the wisdom. We get to play in our possibilities and see what's possible. And we get to see the people that have gone before us and use that as powerful inspiration for what is available for us. And it just starts with deciding, focusing and being aware of our thoughts, emotionalizing our desires, and then taking the next right step. And it can all happen better and quicker than you could ever imagine.
Absolutely. So profound. And I'm going to piggyback on that with something you said earlier. Simply because you don't see it out there yet doesn't mean it's wrong. It simply means you got to be the first. You got this. We thank you all for joining us, hoping you amazing, amazing existence, creation, love, being. And you heard it here first, Indrani Phillips, amazing wisdom and jewels and nuggets that you want to hold close to your heart. And please stay safe out there. We look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for
Thank you so
now.
much. Bye, ladies.
Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to share this video and like, comment, and subscribe. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at NewYouWow. Until next time, stand tall in your power and remember, your belief in yourself is your superpower.